On today's show, the San Diego Padres get a very splendid and delightful bounce-back win against the Arizona Diamondbacks, but it wasn't without some fears surrounding mainly Mason Miller, Yu Darvish, and potentially whether or not this lineup is being organized properly. Let's get to it.
You are Locked On Padres, your daily San Diego Padres podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of Locked On Padres podcast, which is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day for Wednesday, August 6th. As always, I'm your host with sometimes, occasionally, but certainly not always the most, Javier Reyes, and I've been covering this team for almost 6 years now, not just for this podcast, but also various other outlets, including JustBaseball.com, chief among them. Today's episode, guys, is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's right, half off your first year. So go check that out, and go check me out on the socials at Javipeno on Twitter/X and Blue Sky, JAVIIPENO, for any questions, comments, or concerns you may have. Today's episode, guys, we are recapping, giving my thoughts on last night's game, mainly surrounding a couple pitchers. Mainly a couple pitchers for the Padres that we got to talk about, Mason Miller and Yu Darvish. Then there's some questions about the Padres lineup order that I have for Mike Shildt and management. And then, is Fernando Tatis Jr. having an underrated season? Because, believe it or not, I actually don't know. Yeah, that's right. That's how we start off this episode, by posing a question to you guys that I don't even have an answer for. Is that good podcasting? It remains to be seen. But first, guys, let's get into the game last night. The Padres win by a score of 10-5, but trust me, it was not a blowout like that suggests. Firstly, let's start with Yu Darvish. 4 innings in this game, 3 earned runs on 2 walks and 5 Ks. I thought he looked okay, though. Some of these runs come after a mistake from Ramon Laureano. He had a fielding error. Wasn't counted as an error, which, by the way, is why you don't always want to just go by errors. But a drop fly ball in this game, I believe it was the bottom of the 4th inning, that then resulted in some runners being moved up. Then he threw a wild pitch. I thought he was a little bit razzled. I think it's somewhere between the bad starts he's had so far and the great start that he had. I just think that he looked better than the final line suggests. You know what I mean? The fact that he was able to get big strikeouts when they needed him to, despite some of the defensive miscues, I liked it, right? Like, I liked it. He only went 4, which is the big problem in this one, and they're going to need him to go further. And again, the back end of this rotation is still a question, right? Like, this is still going to be something that I don't think we're not on like DEFCON 1 or anything like that, but the back end of this rotation is once again going to be an interesting storyline, I think, to follow, because for much of the first half of this season, as my voice cracks there, I think that the big question for the Padres heading into this year is, what was this rotation going to really fill out like, right? With Darvish hurt, with Musgrove hurt, and then with newcomer Nick Pivetta, who is going to fill this out? Well, we know about Pivetta, and we know that Brian Berger and Steven Kolek are gone, so we have to see, like, who ends up being the guy. Like, is it going to be JP Sears? Is Nestor Cortez going to be good in tonight's start? It's a big storyline to follow. Hey, I'll tell you though, if Nestor Cortez does the bare minimum and is just okay, and he's been that, by the way, before when he was with the Yankees, so we'll have to see if he can do that. And I'm really, really, really excited to see how he does tonight. But that's not it, obviously, guys. Lourdes Gurriel hits a home run in the bottom of the 1st inning. Just absolutely crushes one. And like I said, Geraldo Cordova scores on a wild pitch. But the Padres struck back. Firstly, Xander Bogaerts with a 2-handed swing and this one for a solo shot at the top of the 2nd inning. Love to see it. I talked about Xander Bogaerts on yesterday's show, that he has been playing better. Don't get me wrong, but it is worth bringing up that for some reason he can't drive in runs, which, granted, is not unique just to him, right? Like, the rest of the entire Padres lineup has been pretty bad with driving in runs, but nonetheless, it's still worth bringing up that this has been really, really frustrating at times. And in some cases, it's bad luck. Tatis hit a ball 105 miles per hour, had an expected 590 batting average. It ended up being a line out yesterday, right? Like, he's been getting a little bit unlucky lately. A 460 expected batting average ground out, right? Like, he's been getting a little bit unlucky. I understand that. But for the most part, this Padres offense is just not very good at giving them the hits that they need when they need them. But whatever. Jake Cronenworth then drives in a double. I just love that Jake Cronenworth's like the 8th hitter on this team now. Like, actually genuinely incredible. And I was really excited about Cronenworth heading into this year. And I understand that the defensive metrics aren't great. He made that crazy diving catch last week. But other than that, I still chalk that up to being a first baseman for the past few years, so he's still getting back used to it. But overall, I do like what this Padres lineup is doing. Bottom of the 8th inning, though, right? And by the way, great game from Ramon Laureano, who I dissed at the beginning there because of the mistake, but 3 for 6 in this game with 3 ribbies. He was great. I believe his second triple with the Padres so far. His second triple. He also had a double in this one. Like, he's been... I mean, we got to talk about Laureano for a second. Dare I say, in terms of bats at the halfway point at the deadline. So I'm talking like when they acquired Adam Frazier. I'm talking about when they acquired Josh Bell and Jake Marisnick and Adam Frazier and Brandon Drury, those type of guys, right? Mitch Moreland back in 2020. Ramon Laureano is having quite easily the best, like, first impression for a new Padres bat in a while. I might even extrapolate that to larger sample, by the way, right? Like, you might even say Soto wasn't even that great when they first got him either, right? So that's pretty impressive. So shout out to Ramon Laureano just being absolutely incredible in this game. Tatis does get an RBI despite going 0 for 6 in this one. He does draw a walk with the bases loaded, but Laureano with an RBI double, with an RBI, with a triple, and then with another single later on in the top of the 11th. Just great stuff from him. But we got to talk about Mason Miller, which I think is the story overall. I think that people have to take away from last night. Mason Miller comes into the game and gives up the game-tying home run. Again, another home run to Lourdes Gurriel Jr. I don't have his numbers against the Padres in his career, but I swear Lourdes Gurriel just kills us. And this is why you got to be careful with this D-backs team. They're still capable of putting up numbers. And Mason Miller gets brought in, gives up the tying home run. I don't know what to say about this. First of all, he did get 2 strikeouts, which was nice to see that the stuff can still work. I still think his fastball is one of the best fastballs in the game. He hit 104 last night. The talent is incredible. But it's for reasons like this why I'm always saying that I don't like relievers. I should say, I don't like putting so much investment in relievers because it can be weird. I'm not saying that Mason Miller's a bust. I actually think that his stuff just tells me he's going to be fine. I really do. I hope I'm right on this. I think he's just adjusting, being on the Padres, not in that same ballpark, right? I think that he's just got to figure out the sinker. The slider usage a little bit better, and I think he'll be fine. But overall, it's just moments like this that get me frustrated. But hopefully he bounces back. I think he will. But that is not all we got to talk about, guys. We got to talk about the Padres lineup. We got to talk about that 11th inning of dreams. That was the 11th inning. I just love to see it. It was so satisfying. We're going to talk about that, guys, in a second. But first, we need to talk about one of our sponsors, and that sponsor is our friends over at the Hue of Game Day. Let me tell you guys, today's episode is brought to you by Game Day Hue. And for fans like me, this sponsor hits the mark. Game Day Hue makes clean, no-logo gear with team-inspired colorways for every pro and college fan base. It's all about letting your colors speak for you. No giant logos, just smart, versatile style that works on game day, on the course, or anywhere in between. It's subtle, stylish, and you can still rep your team. It's great. You want to rock it to the office? Boom. They got you covered. You want to rock it to mini golf? Boom. They got you covered. The bar? Boom. They got you covered. Dinner table? Boom. They got you covered. Whatever you need, guys. And what I love is they've also got these gloves. They got their split shade gloves made for the golf course, and it could be a perfect gift for a fan who has everything. So right now, you get 15% off with code MLB15 at GameDayHue.com. That's GameDayHue, HUE.com. The code even stacks on bundle deals, so now's the time to load up. Let your colors talk, because colors speak louder than words. That's GameDayHue.com, code MLB15. Go check it out. And just like that, everybody, we're back, thriving and vibing into the second segment. As I said before the break, Mr. Mason Miller giving up the game-tying home run. And let me tell you, Padres fans, they were not pleased. They were not pleased. I saw Blake Harris as well, who's like an annoying Dodgers media person, like, making a comment about this. It will always remain incredible to me. A team that has the budget of 2 Avengers movies put together and has won a World Series last year, and has every famous player in the world, including every Japanese famous player in the world, practically. Not every, but you get my point. Shout out Yu Darvish, right? But overall, it's just amazing how much they think about us. It's incredible. It's incredible. It's incredible. It makes sense why we are, because we're supposed to beat you. That's the point of sports. We want to overtake you guys because you're on top. Now, Dodger hating episode today. That we'll save that for later when they actually do play the Dodgers, which is going to be coming up soon. But after that, giving up that home run, thankfully the offense does come through. We get an RBI from Luis Arráez. We get an RBI from Jackson Merrill, a sacrifice, but still. By the way, Jackson Merrill, I think he's tied officially. They were talking about this on the broadcast yesterday. I think he tied the record for most consecutive games with an RBI in Padres history with 9. Could be wrong about that, but I believe with this RBI he does do that, which is great. Because overall, not a big Jackson Merrill game, but he does go 1 for 4 with a walk, which is very much appreciated. Ramon Laureano then drives one in with a single. Jake Curran with fielder's choice, and Freddie Fermin, who, by the way, doing okay, showing that you can actually maybe sometimes get something out of the catching position. It's great, right? Elias Diaz got the start, but then they brought in Freddie Fermin. I love it. And again, I'm still a little bit worried about those back end options. It's just something to keep in mind. You know, did they give up a little bit too much? But bottom line is they needed a catcher who was just major league quality. And I think that Freddie Fermin can do that. And let's hope that they see more than just this guy will be okay. They see, oh, we actually like his upside a little bit, and he's got a couple years of control. So we'll see. But overall, good win for the Padres. But man, that was a disappointing moment for Mason Miller. And they used a lot of the bullpen. They used the 4 horsemen in this one: Suarez, Estrada, Adam, Monahan. They also brought in Wandy Peralta for an out. They also brought in David Morgan to get the win, which... not get the win, but finish things off, right? Robert Suarez actually gets tagged with the win. Big strikeout, by the way, for Robert Suarez. I was nervous, and I think a lot of Padres fans the same. It just felt very Padres-y. You have your new deadline acquisition. Mason Miller gets blown up by Lourdes Gurriel. And then what happens? You got to bring in Robert Suarez for the bottom of the 9th. He gives up. He relieves Wandy Peralta after there was a single on board and after Alek Thomas got hit, but thankfully gets the fly out and a strikeout on Corbin Carroll. Corbin Carroll, I was like, oh, we're screwed. But whatever, guys. Nice win for the Padres. But there are some questions about this team, mainly with the lineup order. Last night was a not great lineup order, right? Like, on the surface level, I looked at the lineup and I was like, really? Neither Sheets or Ryan O'Hearn are playing tonight? It was Tatis, Arraez, Machado, Merrill, Bogarts, Laureano, Cronenworth, Iglesias, and Elias Diaz. So, why is it that happens? Because Manny Machado, I assume, just needed a day off, and by the way, he was great. 3 for 5 in this game with a walk. Maybe that's part of it. Maybe they were just like, we need to give him a day off, and out of all these guys, Iglesias is the only one that can play third. And in that case, that's fine. But going forward, I want to see what Mike Shildt does with this lineup. Because in my opinion, there's a world in which I could argue their lineup needs a huge overhaul, right? Like, I might even have O'Hearn bat second at times, right? I might even have Laureano bat fourth. I don't want him batting fourth because I really like what he's been doing so far, but moving Xander and Merrill or Arraez down in the order is not an option that should be completely dismissed, this idea. Because for me, and this goes back to my feelings on Arraez. Now, here's the thing. Arraez has been on fire lately. Let me be very, very clear. Luis Arraez has been great. He went 1 for 6 last night, which wasn't great. But he did have an RBI. But over his last few games, he has looked a little bit more like the Arraez that we thought we were going to get, which is a above 300 hitter, right? In the month of July, he hit 323 with a 374 on base. That's what you were supposed to get from Luis Arraez, right? 788 OPS. April, when he had a 935 OPS, not necessarily that. But I think that overall, Arraez still could have a really strong finish to the season, even if he has been a little bit disappointing. Through 5 games in August, he's hitting 273. But overall, I just feel like he might be better in a different spot. Because to me, doesn't it feel way less scary, the beginning of this lineup, than it should? Now, part of that is because Merrill's having a little bit of a sophomore slump, although he's, as we discussed with the RBI thing before, doing a lot better. But with how Tatis has been playing, with Arraez playing better, but still not playing overall at the level that makes up for his lack of walks and power, for him to be second, then you get to Machado. It just feels like there's been a lot of times when Manny is up and we're asking him to do everything, right? As opposed to what I just mentioned to you, what if you had maybe O'Hearn second? What if you have Laureano second? What if I don't know if you just change it up a little bit. Xander Bogaerts, as we discussed yesterday, can't drive in a run. What if you put him higher in the order because he could be a better on-base guy instead of driving in runs? I don't know, really. I would keep Bogaerts where he is, but I'm just wondering. Luis Arraez in his career, by the way, depending on where he is slide of the lineup, in terms of batting second, that is actually one of the lowest batting average. His batting average is the lowest when he bats second in his career, with the exception of the 8th and ninth hole, right? Which he doesn't have too many examples of playing. He's hitting 325 seventh, 308 when he's sixth, 376 when he's batting fifth, 306 when he's batting fourth, 356 when he's batting third, and 298 when he's batting second, then 323 when he's batting first. My thing is this. He has a huge WRC plus spike when he's batting fifth or when he's batting third. So I'm kind of with the idea that we should move him down in the order. Because while you might be thinking, dude, he's such a pest. Like, that is such a good, like, pesky guy to have. I kind of like the idea of having him, you know, bat second. You have Tatis, potentially he draws a walk or whatever and he's on base. Or maybe he's on second base, then Arraez gets a single and he's in. But I'm just looking at his career numbers and wondering if another spot in the order could be better for him. I also don't think there should ever be a point, really, and granted, it's the regular season, I get it, but there should never be a point in big games in which O'Hearn and Gavin Sheets both aren't playing, especially O'Hearn, who you just got at the deadline, who, granted, has not done too much for the Padres so far, right? And I also think that it's worth acknowledging that if needed, Shildt could still use those guys off the bench, right? Like, pinch hitting, I imagine, was in his mind. He didn't need to because the Padres scored so much towards the end of that game. But I do think that Ryan O'Hearn, with his 130 WRC plus, it's worth bringing this up. Now, I will say with the Padres so far, not doing too much. I am hoping he's not like the aforementioned other players who the Padres get as bats at the deadline that then all of a sudden are not very good, right? He's got a 111 average so far with the Padres. That's not great. Not great in 4 games, but only 9 at bats, so give him a second. I'm just wondering, can the lineup order be changed around just a little bit? I think I might move Arraez around. Arraez does not see as many pitches as you'd like, and he doesn't have the speed. So for me, I've been a Jackson Merrill proponent for a long time. I have. I've been a proponent of start off with Tatis and Merrill. I understand that Merrill's a little bit weird this year, but I don't know, man. I don't know. And again, Shildt knows more than me. I don't want to assume that I know every number in the book. I definitely don't. I'm just looking on Fangraphs and going by the eye tests and stuff. But I don't hate the idea of being like, what if we did Tatis, Merrill, Arraez, maybe have Manny bat fourth, depending if O'Hearn's playing, how we feel about him, maybe Sheets. I understand, because Machado is also just a good batting average on base guy, right? Like, it's not just power with him. But I'm just wondering, do you guys like that a little bit better? Imagine Merrill and Tatis on base. If Arraez has a softly hit single, Merrill can get to third, and Tatis can score, right? Or like all sorts of combinations. I think it's just a little bit scarier if you have those two to start. It's just an idea, but I imagine throughout the rest of the season, we're going to still see how things shake up. Laureano, at this rate, might get brought up in the order. Apparently, because he's just going to hit doubles and triples every day, right? You could see that. And a solo shot the other day. So we'll see. But overall, it's just something for you fans and listeners to keep an eye on. The lineup order is still something that I think they're experimenting with and we'll figure out as the season goes along and they race for that final wild card spot. But folks, one more second before we got to talk about Tatis and whether or not he's having an underrated season, because that's a complicated question. And we're going to talk about it in just a second. But first, ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you about our friends over at The Money. That is monarchical, right? But in a good way. Monarch Money, guys, if you ever wish managing your money felt easier, with Monarch Money, it can be. Whether you're growing your savings or planning a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money is more than a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So in addition to managing your money, you're also building wealth. They give you all these insights. They give you plans, right? They give you goals. They let you know, hey, Javi, can you stop buying from DoorDash every other day? I've been a little bit better for what it's worth, just to peek through the curtain. I've been a little bit better, but it is just nice to see that they're going to help you with your subscriptions. They're going to help you with all the things that add up more than you expect, right? And if you share finances with someone, they can also help you with just one account, really manage everything together with your partner, whatever it is. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONMLB for half off your first year. Go check it out. And just like that, everybody, we are back here thriving and vibing. It's this final segment of this show. We've been talking the game. We've been talking the lineup. Now we got to talk about a specific player in this Padres lineup who we've been spending, all season, but he's the guy. How can I not? It's Fernando Tatis Jr. I don't want to do like an overall view of his entire season, right? Because there's still so much more left to go. And he could very well catch fire and genuinely vault himself back into the MVP race. And that might shock a lot of you. MVP race? What are you talking about? Like, he hasn't been that good. What do you mean? He's been good, but not that good. Well, first of all, he leads the Padres in wins above replacement with 4.4. And by the way, he's one of the top wins above replacement WAR leaders in all of Major League Baseball. Yeah, you probably don't know that, but he's 7th. Despite what the media will tell you, despite what all these people on Twitter and everybody making fun of him, he is 7th in wins above replacement. Now you might be wondering, Javi, why is a slash line of 261, 364, 434 make you the 7th best player in baseball? Well, it's not just that. It's also been his absolutely phenomenal defense, which we've talked about a lot, right? Like, this is Tatis very quietly. I haven't checked some of the numbers. It's probably going to go to Pete Crow Armstrong, frankly. I assume it's going to go to Pete Crow Armstrong. But 16 defensive runs saved this year with 9 at-bats above average. That's really, really good. Like, this is one of the premier defenders in Major League Baseball who could very well at least finish close when it comes to the Platinum Glove. It's probably not going to go to him. He's probably just going to get the regular Gold Glove for right field because Pete Crow Armstrong in center field has 18 defensive runs saved and 18 outs above average, which is absolutely insane, by the way. Pete Crow Armstrong, man, what a guy. That guy is Spider-Man out in the outfield. Holy God. But aside from that, a lot of people will say, well, he's only got a 127 WRC+. I will say his expected weighted on base is 387, which ranks a lot higher, suggesting he's getting a little bit unlucky. Has had a couple hits taken away from him, especially over these last few games. We talked about it at the beginning of today's podcast. The other day we talked about it as well. Getting a little bit robbed. A lot of 490 and 500 expected batting average plays. But overall, I think the question of whether or not he's been underrated this year is really, really complicated because if you look at just July, he had a great month and no one talked about it, right? First of all, yes, we all know that he hasn't been the same since that first month. When he had a 986 OPS, he was slugging 591, walking a lot, and then he fell off. 626 OPS in May, and then a 706 OPS in June. But in July, he had a 910 OPS, right? And then in August, he's hitting below 100 in 5 games, right? And over the course of July, like, he had a great month, like I said, but overall his last 15, which is why I think a lot of complaints are arising, he has not been very good. He's been good, but not great. 236, 336, or 366, 390 slash line. That's good for a 122 WRC+. That's a good player. Tatis is a great baseball player, but when it comes to the batting, right, it's gotten to a point where we really have to be like, is this just who he is? A guy who's going to have some big hits potentially. He's going to be an electric, exciting player still, right? Because of his base running, because of his overall speed, because of his amazing defense, which, frankly, still doesn't get credit for. And that's where I kind of land on, where I don't think Tatis is having an underrated season. I just think in general, his transition to the outfield, I still don't think gets enough coverage. I really don't. I just think people like to hate on the fact that he's not hitting home runs anymore, which granted is understandable. He's only hit like 4 home runs since May, right? Like, that's crazy. Just 2 home runs in July and 2 home runs in June. Just not great, right? You need to see more from that. But overall, he's still a good player. So is he underrated? I don't know. I think this is one of those situations where if he's like this every year, where he's just going to be a lot of his offense, unfortunately, is going to come from his speed, and it's going to come from walks, right? The guy is walking at an incredible rate. If this is just what he is for like the next 5 years or rest of his career, I think then, yeah, he could become a pretty underrated player that everyone's like, wait, dang, Tatis was always there. He just always drew walks, and he had a decent batting average. He could get on base. He had speed. He had the defense. Like, maybe we were underrated this guy. It's possible. But as of right now, I don't view what Tatis having an underrated season because sometimes WAR is flawed, right? WAR can absolutely be flawed. And sometimes, especially on Fangraphs, I think that even though I like Fangraphs, I do think that WAR inflates defense a little bit much sometimes for my liking, right? And don't get me wrong, it's still an important stat. Xander Bogaerts has been a great defensive player this year. Made a nice defensive play yesterday, getting the ball and taking it to second himself and then throwing on to first. Granted, Arráez made a better play with the grab and tag, but still, good stuff. Defense absolutely matters. But what I'm saying, though, is there are some players where they have like a 105 WRC plus and 3.5 wins above replacement. And sometimes I'm like, there's no way your defense is that good, right? Like there's, what are you, the Flash of the outfield? So every now and then I don't want to fully just look at WAR and call it a day. But it is worth mentioning that he's still a good player. And for all the Dodgers fans in your life, which I'm sure there are many, who talk about the PED suspension, that ever since the PED suspension, he has not been the same. And that's a totally, unfortunately, fair thing to bring up. My only counter to that would be shoulder injury, that he's still getting a little bit unlucky, although this is the third year in a row that his expected stats have been higher than his real stats. So I don't know if you can use that. But more importantly, there have been other players throughout baseball history, throughout current baseball history, that start off strong, that then fall off a little bit. Nobody's talking about how Julio Rodriguez, oh, was he taking PEDs now too? And Julio Rodriguez is still a good player, right? Still a good player. You can look at Evan Longoria. You can look at plenty of other guys. Is Jackson Merrill now a guy that's like, oh, he was taking PEDs that first year? There are a lot of players who start off amazing and fall off. Just like there are a lot of players who start off a little bit and are great. Bobby Witt Jr. was not very good his very first year, right? Now, these are just random players, but overall, that's just kind of the sense that I'm trying to throw everybody's way. When it comes to the overrated allegations, I don't think that they're entirely fair. Is he having an underrated season? I don't know, because yes, he's still a good player, but dude, you need to be better than this. Like, we shouldn't be making it that, Gavin Sheets has felt like for a lot of this year, he's a better bat than you, right? 127 WRC plus isn't enough, and it has to be better. And I'm really wondering if he needs more tinkering in the offseason, where I'm not going to expect him to be better next year, but maybe some more tinkering, because yeah, he's drawn a lot more walks. He has become a lot more patient of a hitter, which is great, but at the cost of being a guy who just can't hit anything on the top of the zone. And I don't know if that's permanent. I don't know if this is just a flaw in his game that pitchers have found out, and it's not a result of him changing his batting stance and his plate approach, but just maybe teams have found out, yeah, he can't hit top of the zone. Just don't do that and you should be fine. It's totally possible that's the situation. But even if all these worst case scenarios come true, the defense, the speed, I'm trying to just emphasize that he's still a good player. But is he that super duper star? We're running out of time with that, guys. We're running out of time. He should be hitting for power. This is a guy who's in the 70th percentile of barrel rate, 93rd percentile of average exit velocity. His expected slugging is in the 85th percentile. His hard hit rate, more importantly, is in the 90th percentile. You should be doing better than this offensively, instead of just most of your offense, it feels like, being from the fact that he walks prodigiously, right? And that's great. But right now, it's like, this is what Juan Soto was like when he's at his worst. Always walking, which is good. But is it good enough? I don't know. But guys, that was a mishmash of thoughts at the end there, and it looks like we've run out of time. Tomorrow's episode, guys, we are going to be doing something. I don't know just yet, but we're probably going to be recapping Nestor Cortez. Might have a guest on tomorrow's show, and definitely going to have a guest on one of the two shows, whether it be tomorrow or Friday, talking about the general state of things with my guy Jim Grease. Go check him out with the postcast after every game. He goes live, answering your questions, doing a more definitive game play-by-play breakdown. So always good content coming up for you guys. But until that next time, stay safe, and of course, stay faithful. My Friday Faithful homies, take care.